Hello, my dear young friends. Yesterday we had seen the story, a mysterious story, a detective story of events. Today we are going to have the second part of the story. Yesterday we have seen that Dr. Benson taking pity on that poor man who was carrying that bundle and he wanted to help him because it was cold night. But what happened, after that cigarette packet was thrust in his, he could see whom the face of that Evans. Did the doctor like Evans' small cat-like face and bright fresh scars? From there, the story takes a new turn. And he didn't like that bright red scar and cattish face. And would you have been thought well of Evans? What about you? So anyway, this is a story. And what do you think will happen next? Yes, for your thinking, we are going to have the second part. A case of suspicion. Dr. Benson moved his hand very slowly and very carefully below the seat until he felt the leather holster in which he always carried with him his automatic pistol. Because it was just a car and he was putting his hand slowly and carefully, and he wanted to take that holster, that is pistol. Why? We will come to know. He drew out the pistol slowly and held it in the darkness at his side. At the side where he was sitting, Vance. Dr. Benson stopped the car quickly and pushed the nose of his gun into Evans' face. Oh, in that way. The rider, Evans, jumped up with fear and put up his hands quickly. My God, Mister, I thought you... He wanted to speak something. He whispered. But what happened here? Dr. Benson pushed the pistol still deeper into the man's side and repeated coldly and boldly also, put that watch in my pocket before I let this gun go off. Hey, mister, put back my watch. Because he felt that this Evans had taken his watch. In a hurry, he was not able to just clear the doubt himself. Instead, suddenly, that face, that scar of that Evans, had totally changed. That is why he thought that when he couldn't find his watch, he thought that he was the only man who has taken it. That is why he put out that pistol and aimed towards that Evans. Evans put his hand in his own vest pocket. That vest pocket, he put his hand and later with trembling hands tried to put the watch into the doctor's pocket. He didn't understand. Suddenly this poor fellow, he took his own watch and put into the pocket of our Benson. Dr. Benson. With his free hand, Dr. Benson pushed his watch down into his pocket. Then he said, okay. And he pushed, because he had just kept it, and he just pushed it down in that pocket, in his pocket, and he was sure that he got his watch. With his free hand, Dr. Benson pushed the watch down into his pocket, and he opened the door and forced the man out of the car. Hey, come on, get out. And he was pointing that pistol towards him. And in spite of that, because he had already given the watch, and he was so much confused, whose watch? And he told him about his watch, and he thought that it was his watch, and he kept it. He opened the door and forced the man out of the car. Come on, you have seen so many films like that, Hey, come on. And he just opened it and asked him to get out of the car. I am out here tonight, probably to save a woman's life, but I took time out to try to help you, he said to the man angrily. No, only because of you. I have come here only to save the life. But taking pity on you, I just got you into my car. Dr. Benson started the car. Well, naturally, he was a poor man. He just came out of the car. And the wind closed the door with a loud noise. You must have heard you must have had your own experience, Whenever there is a wind, that makes a long and sound while closing the door. And thud and thud, that door was shut. And he put the pistol back into the leather holster under the seat and hurried on. And he kept it under that seat. Usually these people, will keep all this because for their safety. And he just kept that holster which had contained his pistol, automatic pistol, there. The drive up the mountain to the Sorley farm was less difficult than he had feared. He had thought that, but he found that it was not so terrible that up the mountain. And Ot Sorley had sent one of his older boys down the road, that family, where he was going. And that Mr. This man Ot, that woman's husband, had sent his older boys, because dozen children were there, and the oldest of those had been sent with a lantern to help him across the old wooden bridge that led up to the little farmhouse, because it was very dark. And so he had sent his son with a lantern. What kind of lantern? You have got kandil. In our life we say kandil. And that light had been brought by one of the sons to lead the doctor safely to the farmhouse. Mrs. Sorley's many previous experiences with bringing children into the world apparently helped her greatly, because they had decided to go for children, and that helped them now. Why? How? Because she delivered this child with little difficulty. After so many children born, there was no difficulty, no delivery problem, and there was no need on Dr. Benson's part of the instruments in the long bag. So Benson had no opportunity to open that bag where he had carried the instruments that are necessary for the delivery of the child. There was no problem for him. And it was a natural, easy birth of that child. So there was no doctor's heavy role in that. After it was all over, what is all over? That whatever that has to be done, when that is over, Dr. Benson took a cigarette out and sat down to smoke. So he was one thing, it was already done, work is done, and the second thing, he was tired and he was thinking of the journey and also the man, perhaps. So he wanted to relax himself. He took out that cigarette and lit it. Now, this part, what did you see? Here, there are questions, that help you to remember what you have already read. That is why my request to you, you have to go through the PPTs again and again and read them again and again and refer to them again and again. So here are a few questions. You need not send for the evaluation. It is only for you to understand the story. Why did the doctor reach for his pistol? Do you know? Because he did not find his watch. And naturally, he thought that he has stolen the watch while taking the cigarette box out or keeping the cigarette box in his pocket. What did he do with it? He just showed that pistol to him. That is how you have to. But while writing, be a good writer, you to adding one or two sentences more. You use your imagination also. What was Ivan's reaction? What did he do when he thrust his pistol at the mouth, at the face? His response was very cold, but he was horrified. And he was thinking, why this horrible behavior of the doctor? He was not able to understand. What did he do? His reaction was very cold and it was very horrible also. What did he do? He silently did not say anything. He wanted to say something, but he was stopped by the doctor. And he just slowly came out of the car and had his way. Why did the doctor turn Evans out of his car? Because he had got suspicion. Suspicion of this man stealing the watch. That suspicion. Suspicion is a worm, If we allow that worm of suspicion in our mind and head, it is going to spoil. The same thing happened here also. And why did the doctor turn Evans out of his car? Because he thought that because of the suspicion that he had taken. Where was the Sorley farm? Up there. While going through the lesson, read it, you will understand. Who helped him reach it? One of the children, by bringing that lantern and showing him. Did the doctor have any difficulty with his patient? No. How do you know? Because there are one or two sentences are there, they are going to help you. How do you know that the doctor was relaxed after the baby was born? Because he wanted to puff the cigarette. That means that all that burden of the mind was not there. Now, shall we go for the next part of the story? What happened after that? And he began to smoke. And he wanted to tell his experience to the husband. Or a fellow picked up in my car on my way up here tonight, tried to rob me. "Hello, Mr. Op, do you know what has happened? I wanted to help him. He was a stranger. He was carrying a bundle. Moreover, it was very dark and it was very cold. So I wanted to help him." He said to Ott, feeling a little proud, and continued, "He took my watch." "Huh? He took my watch. But when I pushed my 0.45 pistol, automatic pistol into his side, he decided to give it to me back." He had never thought whose watch, why and how. He had no idea about that anyway. But he said it was heroically what happened, that night. He wanted to rob. And with my pistol, yeah, I got my watch back. Art smiled wide. Naturally, what this listener can do. At such an exciting story coming from young Dr. Benson. "Well, I'm glad he gave it back to you." That is the normal response. Because if he hadn't, we wouldn't have any idea what time the child was born. Yes, we are lucky and we could know the time of the child birth. You got your watch back. "What time would you say it happened, doctor?" said Ott. "What happened? What is that time?" Dr. Benson took out the watch, took off the watch, took out that watch from his pocket. And he had not seen that. Simply that there was one instrument. He thought that it was a watch. "The baby was delivered about 30 minutes ago. And right now it is..." And he walked over to the lamp to see the exact time minusing those 30 minutes. He stared strangely at the watch in his hand. "Huh? Watch?" Stared at the watch strangely. The crystal was cracked. That was the halat of that watch. The top was broken. Features of the watch. He turned the watch over like this, he saw, and held it closer to the lamp. Very close to the lamp. He studied the own inscription there. Something was written in that watch. What was the inscription? What had been written there? So it was written, "To Private T. Evans." It was given by someone. It's a gift. Ambulance section. So he was in ambulance section. He was working there. "Whose personal bravery preserved our lives the night of November 3, 1943, near the Italian front." Oh, for that gallant behavior of Evans had saved the lives of many people. And for that, it was gifted to Evans. Nurses Nesbitt, Jones and Wingate, who had given that. All the names had been written there. Now the story ends. See the maja of the story here. When he saw the inscription, perhaps, it is all the reader who has to go into the story back and have all the thoughts that come to his mind about this story, suspense story, what would have happened? Wow, he must have thought, what I have done. Poor fellow, I pushed him out of my car in that dark, cold night. So in that way, he must have been thinking. And now, you have to read and enjoy the story. Exercises. Now, refer to the words in the passage that show Dr. Benson felt he was justified in turning events out. Why? What was the justification that he had? Or while listening to the story, what you have thought? Why was Mr. Sorley happy that Dr. Benson got back his watch? Because he could know the exact time of the birth of the child. How did the doctor realize that he was not looking at his own watch? Naturally, because it was broken. Something was inscribed. And what information did the inscription give about events? Oh, he was there, ambulance section, working, and he has saved the lives of so many people. And in that, he was gifted for that bravery. That is what we found about events. Now, the problem it is the things that you have to send to us. Do you think the title of the passage is appropriate? You have to go through the passage again. Is it appropriate? What is that story? A case of suspicion. Maybe or may not be. So you please think. And one thing you remember, if you allow that suspicion to enter, that suspicion just spoils everything. That won't allow you to have a logical and clear thinking. Who is suspicious and of whom? Of course, the doctor and events. Was it justified? No, an emphatic no. He was not justified. What was the doctor's impression about events? How did the doctor realize his mistake? So, he can write 2 beautiful paragraphs. What was the doctor's impression about event? So, first impression, he wanted to. Second impression, after seeing his cattish black and scar on his face, that got his impression blurred, spoiled. How did the doctor realize his mistake? He realized his mistake when he saw that inscription on that writing on the watch. You have to write it descriptively and you have to develop the art of writing. It is not mere answering the question. You have to think, add some more points, be imaginative without going far beyond the story and do that. Number 3, would you call Dr. Benson a kind and gentle doctor? In the first part of the story, you find him kind and gentle. And in the second part of the story, that worm of suspicion had entered and became a cruel man. Is it not? Would events think of him in the same way? No. How can he think in the same way? But he was puzzled. He was horrified at that. But he didn't think that Dr. Benson was not a bad man, as he has thought him as a bad man. If not, why? Because there was no reason. He was the man who asked him to come in his car, taking pity on him, because it is a dark, cold night and he was carrying that bundle. And how can he think bad of the doctor? Absolutely no. But what is your reaction? Come on, right. Now, think over. It is only for thinking. Benson was prejudiced against Evans because of his shabby appearance. If, for example, it is your own experience, if you go to your school and the college, so if you are in the shabby dress, nobody will think about you, nobody will talk to you. And therefore, when he lost his watch, what is the appearance? Uncouth manners, because he has taken the two cigarettes and thrust that. So, uncouth manners, the scar on his face, facial expression, and irritating behavior, and he was talking too much. That is why it felt as if his car. What? Smelt what? Medicine. Yeah, you just go. And he immediately suspected Evans of having stolen it. All these things, made him to think that he suspected him. When we are unable to find something in our own house, should we blame ourselves? No. How? You just think and blame others. That is very convenient. In your house, I had kept my towel here and my watch here and my pen here. Who has time? Somebody. And they never try to find out where he himself has kept. Blame others. Calmly try to locate it. There are some people who have got that spiritual mind, calm and quiet mind, they just spend some time to locate it. And second, select an alternative title and justify it. Select alternative title. What the title you can give? You think of it. And with these questions, you have to send as assignments. Okay. Bye. Read it again.